I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock, and we will start with the public hearing. We'll save the Pledge of Allegiance for when we start the meeting. So we are in accordance with RSA 198:20-B. We are here holding a public hearing for the purpose of accepting and appropriating the Primex Premium Holiday Funds for the 2022-23 fiscal year. Is there anyone here who would like to make public comment?
Do we want to just have Lori explain what they are?
Yes.
And how much?
Thank you, Lori.
Okay, so the total amount is $27,545.50. And we're actually receiving a return on each of our policies, our property and liability coverage, workers' comp coverage, and our unemployment comp coverage. Do you want it broken down by coverage, the amount? Okay. So, in previous years, we've received a surplus return for 2 of the 3 policies. So this is the first year with all 3.
Jim?
Is this number a normal number? Is it above or below average? What you expected, or?
I've never actually count on or expect a surplus return, so this is a bonus.
I don't, it's the first time I remember. Thank you.
Didn't I? Sorry about that. In years, well, sometimes we get like 1,000, 1,500. This is the first time it ever reached the level of needing to come to the board for.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, then we will close the public hearing and move on to our school board meeting. Oops, yes?
Would the board want to accept the funds?
Yes, we would love to.
And appropriate, accept and appropriate.
Accept and appropriate the funds. What was the amount again?
It's $27,545.50.
Okay. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? We will now close this public hearing and move on to our school board meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, the first item on our agenda is the points of pride. Superintendent.
So we opened school on August 31st. We had a wonderful first day. The SAU, as is tradition, went to every building, and students and staff were very busy getting into the school year. Specifically, both FES and Pierce had an extremely smooth start, and students are very happy to be back. At Pierce, they welcomed Annie Pittman as their new 2nd grade teacher, and they had a wonderful whole school assembly where 1st through 4th graders presented the core values to the kindergarten. So that was wonderful. And at FES, they welcomed Tom Morris, who previously was at AES, as the 3-4 teacher, and they welcomed Ashley also to join their staff. The building level PD was a wonderful mix of hard work, laughter, and camaraderie. At HES on Thursday, August 25th, the Hancock Elementary School had a community meet and greet, and parents, students, staff, and community members all came together to meet and connect. The community groups in attendance included the Harris Center, the PTO, the Children's Librarian, Hancock Police, the Historical Society, and the Scouting Program. So those are our points of pride today.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next on our agenda is our first public comment period. We invite any member of the public to come to the microphone and offer their comment to us in accordance with our policy BEDH. Are there any members of the public present who would like to make a comment? I don't see any members of the public present. So we will move on to and there will be another public comment opportunity at the end of the meeting after new business. So we'll move on to our consent agenda. Does anyone have any changes to be made to the consent agenda, the school board minutes and personnel? Superintendent.
So just wanting to make sure to draw your attention to that your revised copy of the personnel nomination sheet is in your purple folder. We continue to hire, so this continues to be a living document.
Okay, seeing no changes offered other than the additional hired personnel, we will accept that consent agenda. I wasn't on. And move on to the superintendent's report and presentation of business. Jim.
I have a list. I don't know off the top of my head, but if you give me a second, I can tell you. I got it. Okay, so instructional openings, we have a math teacher at CVHS, the science teacher, which you saw a science teacher on here, that science teacher is coming to teach the AP Bio class. So that will relieve some concerns about that. We still also have a chemistry, a Spanish, and a special ed case manager that's at the high school. At GBS, remaining open is a special education teacher and a 0.6 FTE we've managed to make that work. We also have a math position at SMS. Both the math positions at SMS and the high school have interviews in the next couple of days with promising candidates. We do have a grade 2 position at AES. That grade 2 presently has 22 students in. We're making that work. We have the CVES, so the elementary schools, has a PE position. We do unfortunately still have one preschool position open, but we have most of those preschools are very full, and we have a school psychologist. We are also interviewing for that position. We are in the midst of looking at 2 finalists for the student information systems coordinator, and we need a special educator also at Antrim. So that is where we are. Sorry, I didn't count as I was telling you what there were. Yeah. I will tell you that we are in better shape than many.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Would you like to move on to the report and presentation of business?
Sure. So I do know that we have, as we finish up the last kind of final weeks of enrollment for preschool, we will get that information. That is the only outstanding school board request that I know of, unless there are others. If there are others, I would ask that you remind me now. Okay. Monthly events calendar. We kind of talked about not necessarily going over this week by week, but we do have September filled out for those meetings. I am going to kindly request that we please have a strategic plan meeting so that we can get the strategic plan done.
I meant to. So, I polled the strategic plan committee and we agreed that as soon as it's available, if we could get our hands on it, we would review it and send our comments directly to you.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Steve has a,
So we will know more by the end of the week. Some parents don't bring their student to school until after Labor Day. So we will look, but usually after Labor Day, October 1st is really when enrollment kind of settles. But until then, we don't have a whole lot of information. All we can do is tell you kind of how many children are in the classrooms. Okay. And as that goes on, obviously the administration may be coming with some suggestions or recommendations.
Dick?
So can I just, because I'm linear sequential, no one has questions about the calendar? Are we good on the calendar? Sorry, concrete sequential me just.
Calendar.
Calendar.
Can we put an equity committee meeting on for the last week in September? If it works with your schedules, I would like to propose either Monday or Tuesday, Monday the 26th, or Tuesday the 27th, whatever works better for the administration. If either, because I know we are going to have some things to discuss, hopefully.
We're looking at calendar.
Okay.
No, that's, yeah.
Wait,
No, I did not. So the 27th,
27.
and what time?
Can committee members make 5:30? 5:30? Yes? Okay. Yeah, Doug.
I have something happening that morning, which I think I could be back for. I just don't know the timing of it. It's up in Concord, so it's just
So can we put that on tentatively, and if if you
Absolutely.
can't be there, then maybe we'll postpone.
okay.
Janine? I didn't hear what you said earlier about the strategic planning. I remember getting an email from you saying we would offer our comments to Superintendent Saunders individually, but do we have the document from?
we don't have it
Oh,
yet.
okay.
So, the agreement was as soon as we get the document, we'll read it individually and send our comments directly to, the superintendent. Unless you change your mind, I'm happy to meet. Oh, okay.
Well, actually, right now, that teaching pair is not at Temple because we have moved the para over to Peterborough to relieve some of our para needs because of staffing. So there's no para there right now. So
Kindergarten, 7 students,
yep,
grades 1 and 2, with 6 and 4, 1 teacher.
yes,
Grade 3, 9 with 1 teacher. And grade 4, 5, students with 1 teacher.
yes. That's so obviously this wasn't what the census predicted when we were in April. So we will, as those numbers settle, we'll be coming for with suggestions and recommendations. And I understand that, yep. So we really only have had school for 3 days. So, Tim and I still need to sit down and look at that. And if you have additional questions, I'd probably be happy to entertain or have the board entertain. Yeah, yep. It is not, neither Francistown nor Temple has been lost on the administration as far as what that those two things need to be addressed.
Jim? $122.
So we do not have 120 spots because we're down teachers. So these preschools, so there's 2 here. Right now, there's only one. What's represented here is 1 at GES. There'll actually be 2, and we'll be putting more students in that. Yep.
How many teachers have we added?
So we have right now we have one additional teacher from over last year.
And
But
plan
in
would be,
the-
if plan would be then, I would assume if we get more people interested, we'd add more teachers.
Well, right now, we're not going to add additional teachers. We do not have a whole class represented on
Right.
here because,
Trying to relate where we are in
But-
enrollment in terms of what
right,
we
I get-
authorized, the great debate.
so we don't, because we hired the teacher late, we're still enrolling students in that class. So they're not represented on this.
Okay, if you still got a waiting list?
We do actually still have a waiting
Like,
list.
we added a lot of money to add positions.
Yes,
So, okay, we're gonna
Yep.
grow it.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then we're still down 1 teacher anyway.
We are still down 1 teacher, so.
So we're down 2 teachers, based
Understand.
on this enrollment.
If we got,
Yep.
if we don't have teachers and we got kids waiting, that's a different issue than we get teachers and we got no kids waiting,
Right.
right? Okay, thank you.
Anything else on the enrollment update? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so the CTE presentation. So, we received notification last spring that we would be the recipients of a CTE New Hampshire Office of Civil Rights review. I have been in the central office in Conval for 14 years, and we have never had a CT, thank you. And I would venture to guess from Mr. Dunning's reaction that we haven't had a CTE review for that purpose since before my time. So, but we welcomed the review because information is always information. And Jen is here to talk a little bit about what those findings were and what the corrective actions that were going to be in place Kira, has Fall Mountain had a CTE OCR review? So, anyway, I do understand Keene is having one. Jen,
So I'm happy to be interrupted at any point in the conversation. Just raise your hand and let me know. There's a lot of information here and I know folks can read, so I will let you do that as well. I do want to make clear, it's just an office for the state office for civil rights. It's not the federal civil rights that came and did this review. It was 3 women who were part of the Career Development Bureau that have been tasked with this. So they came and they visited us on 3 different dates in May, the 11th, the 18th, and the 19th. The visit was done just at Conval. We had asked whether or not, since they're also part of our APC, whether Conant and the scenic would be reviewed, and we were told that would occur at a later date. The visit was done in order to ensure that we were in compliance with the federal laws regarding prohibiting discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, and age. The spaces that were reviewed were all of the CTE program spaces, in addition to any spaces a CTE student may encounter during the course of his or her day, to include the LHT, the library, the cafeteria, the gymnasium. All of these different spaces were also assessed. And there was quite a lot of work that happened prior to this. Mr. Grassi helped me out a lot with blueprints and different information regarding build dates. We had a lot of different policy pieces that had to be shared as well. This next one is very dense. I appreciate that. So the gist of it is the reason why we were selected is we haven't been audited in 20 years, they said. I'm not sure whether or not they actually had record of us having ever been audited. There was also a statement, which I would contend is necessarily not accurate, that we have disproportionately low enrollment of 6.92% females and only 2% of students with disabilities in CTE programs. The data that they use to support that is the Perkins Performance Indicator data, which I think most of the folks who are on the school board for a while know. I used to work for the Career Development Bureau at the DOE. That data is notoriously flawed. It is also more than 2 years antiquated by the time that school districts receive it. So that's something else to consider when we're taking a look at that. So I don't want anybody to see that information and be appalled and think that we're not accurately representing the population that we have in this area. So there were several pieces that were brought up as far as issues that needed correction. Many of these, I'm happy to say, we have already addressed. And therefore, I'm bringing up the issue area as it was cited in the report, and then the corrective action that has taken place, or the corrective action that is being recommended. The first, there are 2 different types I learned of discrimination notices. During this process, there is an annual notice of discrimination, and then there is a continuous notice of discrimination. We do have the continuous notice of discrimination policy, as I'm sure many of you are aware, in the school board policy listing, but we are required to publish it on the high school website, if we had a newspaper, advertisements, programs of studies. So we do now have that full listing, which has to include items such as a summary of what sort of programs do we offer. And this information can be found on our website. It's now included on the template for the syllabus that we recommend all of our teachers use. It's included in our program of studies and in the student handbook. So that is clearly represented. The next piece is this continuous notice of non-discrimination, and it has to also include the Title IX and Section 504 coordinators information, and that's right up at the top under the quick links on our website. It's also located in a bunch of other places on our website and in our different publications. Compliance coordinators, they were able to ascertain, there was a whole lot of interviews that went on, that most of our staff, I've counted all of our staff, and most of our students were aware that we have policies regarding Title IX and grievance policy, but they weren't necessarily sure over time about who was in charge of that. So we made sure that is clearly represented on the website in multiple places in our publication. So that is something that has already been completed and done. And all of these different pieces are cited in a voluntary compliance plan that you have to turn back into the state the middle of this month. So it'll be nice to say that we've done many of the things they've already addressed. The grievance policy, as we noted, already listed on the website and can be found also in our publications. This was an issue that was under some discussion. Their issue area was that we needed to ensure that when a student is found ineligible for special education services under IDEA, the school will evaluate to determine if the student is a student with a disability under Section 504, that we needed to update evaluation procedures to ensure compliance with the CFR. So the suggested change that we are making to them and that we're anticipating they will accept is that we will ensure that when a student is found ineligible, we will determine if that student has a disability under 504 if that hasn't already occurred. So we already do have a process in place. It wasn't necessarily one that when the women came to do the interviews were clear as to our process, and we made them clear after that. So this is what we're going to recommend to them in the voluntary compliance plan. This perhaps was some of the biggest issues that we had, and anybody who has been a recent visitor to the high school will certainly notice that we do have issues with our parking lot. We had several citations. As you can see, they took a lot of photographs, and I'm just going to make a point because each of those came with its own annotation as to why it was an issue. We needed to make sure that gaps on accessible paths of travel were no larger than a 1/4 inch. We needed to, and that was in the main parking lot, the front side parking lot. We needed to ensure that van accessible parking lots are located on the shortest route of travel. So you can see here where they actually did go out and take photographs and measure those gaps in the parking lot. Here are other images that they took of the different like denting and the way that the pavement has buckled over time. And you can see in figure 7 there, the significant issues with the curbing that could be a barrier to access for an individual in a wheelchair. They noted that it was out of compliance with ADA 406. A lot of these different pieces I wasn't familiar with previous to this. And then they also cited us for the height of our signs. I can say, fortunately, Mr. Graphics team's already taken care of the sign issue, but certainly the parking lot is a bigger issue than something we can address just by raising or lowering signs. So my recommendation would be that we have a review of the parking lot done in conjunction with facilities and the appropriate consultants for that specific line area, and that based on the feedback we get from that group, we either redo the entire parking lot to include the curbing and walkways, or that all of the handicapped parking be moved to the side of the ACC entrance, and that area, curbing and what have you, to be done in order to be ADA compliant. The other physical plant issues that were brought up, we had some fire extinguishers that went beyond the 4 inches that were allowable. There was signage that wasn't, they went to measure how tall the signs were, whether or not they were braille compliant, and what they met all of those specific pieces. And then this last one here, because I know it's a little bit challenging to see, but it's actually a shower in one of the locker rooms, and it needed to have a shower head that was detachable and could be used by an individual in a wheelchair, and that currently is not the case. So the building-wide assessment of signs is going to be done by Mr. Rossi's team. We'll send out bids for pricing and then hopefully get those ordered shortly. Fire extinguishers are going to be relocated to meet those requirements. And then I'm happy to say already done is that all doors have been adjusted. They actually have a tool where they measure how many pounds of force is needed to open a door, because we want to make sure that anybody who has a disability is able to access all of our interior and exterior doors. So all of those pieces have already been adjusted, and then the handicap parking signs have already been adjusted to be the correct height. Anything that was a relatively quick fix, we made it a point to do prior to having to turn in the voluntary compliance plan, so that they can see that we're making good faith effort in order to meet the federal requirements. Does anybody have any questions?
Want me to re-ask the question? The question I asked for the sake of the audience is where are we in terms of getting an estimate to redo the parking lot for handicapped access? And the answer I got back was, we're working on it, we won't have it by next Tuesday, which is the budget property meeting, right? Thank you.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
My memory is that doing the parking lot and Toto was something that was on the agenda a number of years ago. Is that, and look at you, Jim and Tim, is that something that's in the near future?
I know. How many times have we like put it on the agenda?
The question I maybe shouldn't ask is, if we worked, I can't remember what we did in the full parking lot, whether we did it as a warrant article? Did we have a warrant article for the parking lot, or did we, in the past, do you remember, Dick?
So that was quite a while ago. We did do a warrant article for the parking lot. It was defeated.
So
No, it was
that's what
defeated.
I recall. So my
Right.
question is, if this is a requirement for disability and we put it in a warrant article and said, no, are we in fact,
No means
how
no.
does that work?
No means no.
Even though it's a federal requirement?
If,
or a state
if you
requirement?
put it in a warrant article, no means no, and you may not do it. So then what happens is that we become at risk for
Compliance,
increased compliance problems
understand.
related to ADA and OCR.
The parking lot issue has been an issue for as long as I can remember, well past when it was voted down, and that was years ago, actually. And we as a board have not taken a stand to get this job done. We've been kicking this can down the road. It's time we make a commitment to fix the parking lot. We now are in a situation where we need to have an engineering study done because of the changes, if I have it correctly, in compliances. So it's just not a matter of resurfacing. That parking lot needs to be dismantled and redone completely to meet with the new coding that's been set forward. So as a board, if we have funds at any point, we need to start putting them aside to address this issue, which we have not addressed. And I think we should do it right away.
Kimberly?
Do you have any more questions for Jen?
Does anybody have any more questions?
Mr. Grossi's project. I assume you're pricing out the smaller of the two suggestions. Okay. Yes.
So I just
Thank you, Jen.
want to thank Jen, who put an enormous amount of work into this. This is not your presentation was excellent, but it's not just the presentation, the prep time for the visit, the arrangements to make sure the right people met with the visitors, as well as then getting in all of the information and putting together the corrective action. I would estimate that Jen's time alone was 80 hours. That does not include towards this effort. That doesn't include Mr. Grossi's time, my time, Heather's time, or Dr. Forrest's time. And I would just reiterate that while we always get great information from audits like this, this audit hasn't happened in our district. As a matter of fact, I was not aware that we had a Department of Civil Rights as part of our New Hampshire Department of Education. So I just want to share that with the board because it was an incredible amount of effort and time. No, I don't think that that's necessary.
Jim, you have a question?
Do you have any information available in terms of how many of these audits are done per year and how our scores came out on a scale of above
Well-
average, below average?
So, these seem to be apparently something that is now occurring. So I'll be able to talk to my counterparts, in Keene to find out what their audit looked like and how much time they needed to put towards it.
Because I didn't hear anything that indicated there was any behavior, any part of any staff or anything that would indicate we're not equal opportunity providers.
I agree.
But there are some administrative things that we didn't do, and I
Right.
just don't know how to rate those in terms
Right.
of.
So
Right.
we can certainly ask those questions, and if the board wants us to come back with more information, we can do that.
Jen, did you have something else you wanted to say? Doug, then Dick.
Sorry, I did have a question for you. How were the students determined how was it determined which students to?
I had to, there was
Sometimes when something feels like it might be vindictive in its nature, turns out to be very positive at the outcome. And I think the positiveness here is what a great job our CTE director did, what our staff has done in this district, Mr. Grassi. Those are very positive highlights of what effective administration we have. The other part that comes out of this that I think is most critical is that parking lot. Because though there may be sections that are in violation, believe me, the entire parking lot would not pass any kind of handicap scrutiny that if it were to come further down the road. So I guess we can be grateful that we were singled out so we can move this parking lot along and get it done, because it is an appalling situation for such a great facility. So again, I hope we will move forward on funding as fast and expeditiously as we can.
Kevin.
In, I think, your second slide, you had the numbers for females and for disabled students. And the only thing they recommended that could possibly affect that were the notifications, right, which you've now
Right.
updated.
They also shared, they thought we do effective outreach to the community because we the house in February, we have tours all in February, and also in the springtime, and we send out lots of postcards. So we're doing a lot of outreach.
So they made no recommendation beyond the postings with respect to that.
There was actually several areas where they said the recommendations needed.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Again, thank you so much, Jen. Great job. Oh, yeah, Ellen.
Well, it's not a question, and not to minimize any of the items that were brought up. I think for a first audit that we've had since this center has started, I think it's phenomenal. I do understand that we have issues with the parking lot, but seeing many audits done both in private industry and public industry, for a first audit, this is amazing. And we thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And next on the agenda are reports. And do we have a teacher representative here tonight that would like to give us a report? I see none. Next is the Equity Committee. Liz.
Thank you. The Equity Committee met and we had a really engaging conversation around next steps to move some of the goals, the SMART goals from the administration along. One of those central issues that we discussed was forming a subcommittee of the Equity Committee to discuss and really evaluate and engage with DEIA material and to form questions for the SMART goals for the administration, to create an RFP, to have an equity audit of Conval to see how we're doing, what we're doing well, what we have in place, what we don't have in place. So we need to kind of probe and figure out what questions to ask, and that committee will be responsible. So right now, we're working on coming up with a charge for the board, which I will have to you by the next meeting, hopefully. Okay, I think that's it. Anybody else from Equity want to weigh in?
Okay, thank you, Liz. And I'd like to remind the board that anyone who wants to attend any of the subcommittee meetings, any of the committee meetings, if you're interested in knowing what they're doing as far as their work goes, or because the reports sometimes, we're going to start using a report format, but sometimes it can be hard to know all the work that actually happens in these committees, but you're most welcome to come to any of the committee meetings. Yes, Dick.
I'd just go back and make a request to the teachers to please have representation here. The board wants to hear what teachers have to say. We need you here to hear your voice. So I speak out to those teachers. If it can't be a union member, just a teacher showing up and telling us what is it as a board we can do for you so that we can hear your voice also. So please, and I'll ask the superintendent maybe to speak to the union and ask if they would try very hard to have a teacher here to come and speak openly and honestly to this board so we hear what their concerns are. Thank you.
Actually,
Thank
Dan
you.
and I just kind of giggled because we actually were talking about this today with the CVEA.
Thank you, Dick. Good suggestion. And next is the Selectmen's Advisory Committee, Stephen Allman.
Well, for the last year and a half, Tim TeBurge has taken major responsibility. I did not attend the last one. Perhaps we could discuss a change in my committee assignment so that I could embrace this responsibility. Okay, but I got, did anybody else go to the Selectmen's Advisory Committee?
Well, I was there. Kimberly was there. I think we were the only two board members there, along with the select.
I'm not a board member.
Oh, sorry. I was the only board member there, and Kimberly was the administration representation, and Brenda was there. So generally, I think it was a fairly open meeting, but I wanted the takeaway for me was that the chair of the Selectmen Advisory Committee was looking for ways to be supportive of the district. And they were looking for ways that they could work with us to support the work of the board and the work of the district, and obviously the administration, which I thought was very encouraging. So, if you have ideas, we'd love to hear them. Please come to the meeting. I know it's one more meeting, but you can also pass them along to Kimberly or I, and we will pass those on to the committee. I think other than that, they like to hear what's going on in all the committees as well. Can you think of anything else, Kimberly?
Just that they asked for, at the next meeting for the presentation on, update on the lawsuit.
Yeah. Okay, school board goals work session. We're not voting on the goals. That's farther on the agenda, right? Okay, so I am that the goals, the work session we had on the goals was facilitated by Kimberly. She did an excellent job. The reviews were very positive. I think people felt like it was a very positive experience. We did get a lot of work done. So we started out with the board evaluation, which I'm wondering whether we should go on and create an R document for that as well to attach to our policy around annual board evaluations. It was effective for the board to take a look at how they do their work or how well they're doing their work. We went on to review all of the possible goals that had been submitted by board members. And we had focus groups around those goals, and you can see them all around the room. We came up with 6 goals that you now have in your folder and that we will vote on for our goals for the 22-23 school year. Anything else? Did anybody? Because the board was pretty much there. The whole board was there. There was just Catherine was missing, but I think she was the only one. But does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to that? Okay. And then policy committee, Krista.
Pardon me. We met right before this meeting. We discussed 4 policies, naming of district buildings, school safety, electronic and digital records, and dangerous weapons on school property. Of those, 3 will be coming for a first read. If you have any questions, comments, concerns that you would like to see, have those sent to us. And then we're going to be having a plethora coming for, looks like a first read in a few minutes.
Thank you, Krista. The policy committee has been pushing those policies out. Jim?
A question regarding the budget process document that was circulated. Is that going to end up as a policy, or is that, Krista? Is that the document that Catherine circulated to everybody?
You know what? I don't think they got to the policy committee yet.
I just wanted to ask if it's going to be a policy, because Lori's looked at it, I've looked at it, and our assessment is it pretty much documents what we already do.
Right.
It's a needed document, but is it going to, be published as a policy, or is that?
Probably an R.
Believe it's going to come back and we're going to look at it.
Yeah, and it'd probably be an R document
Yeah.
to be attached to the budget process, the budget policy.
But once we get it back, we'll, because I haven't seen it.
No, everybody saw it. Okay. Janine circulated after the last board meeting. Everybody's had a chance to look at it, but it has been submitted to you guys as a formal.
Yeah, but we need to look at it much more closely and have a larger discussion. Yeah, and it will ultimately end up at policy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, on to old business, legislative update. I sent out an email with a link to a webinar out of Reaching Higher New Hampshire about the proposal to update the Ed 306 rules. Okay, we'll wait till Jim adjusts, figures out how to shut off his video. So pretty shocking and pretty disturbing. The proposed rules on the minimal standards for public education would basically gut the standards for public education. I can't, I'm alarmed, Kimberly is alarmed, and it looks from your faces, I think you're all pretty alarmed too. So when it comes time for public comment, that hasn't been, and it isn't a piece of legislation. So there will not be, although when you change rules or update rules, you have to have a public comment period. It's different than legislation public comment period. So when these opportunities become available, none of those processes were followed with this update process. There were no public notices of meetings. There were no agendas published. There were no minutes to those meetings published. There were no stakeholders that were involved. It was handed off to a private company, to a Center for Competency-Based Learning, to do these changes. So I believe they have been sent out for comment to 4 educational organizations in the state. I'm not quite sure what those are. Kimberly, did you by any chance find out who those?
I do know that I'm going to make some assumptions that they went to the Principals Association, the Superintendent's Association, NEA, and AFT. And that's just speculation on my part. I don't know. I do know that I have shared that with staff. So I'm happy to share the link to the webinar as well as the red line document if that's something that board members want to see, or any public members would like to see.
Yeah, I would like to see the red line document. I haven't seen that. But so we'll keep you updated. This is pretty cataclysmic.
Just to clarify, so what we're talking about is future Department of Education regulations.
Yes, administrative rules have to be updated on a regular cyclical process, and these were due, I think, in 2026. And the preparation time usually starts not quite this early. So usually starts a couple years before the due date. And it's a difficult process because of all the public you do bring in your stakeholders, and you integrate the feedback you get from those stakeholders, and then you resubmit them back out again for more public comment. And then they have to go through legal. They have to go back over to the legal department that's associated with the legislature, and then it goes to JELCAR, the Joint Commission on Administrative Rules. I missed a C in there. So, and that process was not followed with the whole bringing your stakeholders in, collecting comment. So this is quite different than the usual process. So, but yes, they are the rules that provide the standards, the guts of how public education is conducted. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, we'll keep you updated. Okay, we have 2 policies under old business for second read.
Okay, second read, policies, IHBB programs for gifted students.
I move the adoption of IHBB documents.
I second that.
And seconded.
Second, all in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, we now adopt policy IHBB, programs for gifted students.
IHBAF, child find, sorry.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt policy IHBAF, child find.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, we adopt policy IHBAF, child find.
Would you like me to move into the next set?
Rescind policies, yes, under new business.
Okay. LCC, dual enrollment in relations with community colleges. It's a rescinded policy.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to rescind policy LCC, dual enrollment in relations with community colleges.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Dick, seconded by Steve. All in favor? Any nays?
Oh, there's a comment.
Oh. Greg,
I just want for the record clarification, this is being rescinded because it's already covered in other policies.
okay, thank you, Greg. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay. Policy LCC, dual enrollment and relations with community colleges, is rescinded, and it will remain as a record in our body of policy as rescinded. Okay, we have several policies that are first read. Please take a look at those policies and direct any questions or comments you have to the policy chair, Krista Salami, by email. Okay, the next part of the agenda is technology purchases, and you'll find that in the folder. Mark, did you want to tell us what these policies are? Or policies,
Yeah,
these
which
purchases?
ones, which ones do you want me to?
So the first one is the projectors and the desktops.
Yep, the projectors and the desktops were part of a technology RFQ that went out a few weeks ago. These are budgeted items in the current fiscal year's budget and are replacement items for existing technology due to our replacement cycle.
Okay, I can see that your suggestion is down there at the bottom. Would somebody like to make a motion that we accept the technology department's purchase of the replacement equipment? Okay, moved by Greg and seconded by Kira. Again, we are moving that we, okay, I'm trying to get to it. Okay, this is the, that we're moving that we will pay this one right here, the first one that we just, yeah, that we just made a movement on. Okay, Greg, that you're moving that we spend $48,112.50 and to purchase the Epson Bright Light Interactive projectors from the company SHI. And it was moved by Greg and seconded by Kira. That's just to let us. All in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, that purchase is approved. And next, Mark, we have the all-in-one desktops to replace the 5-year-old student desktops.
Correct. Same RFQ. Same vendor won the bid with the low price.
Okay. Okay, do I have any motion to approve this purchase price? Okay, we, again, I'm thinking Catherine, I'm like, what do you call it? Like Gleeman Catherine here, where she makes us put those names and numbers in there. So, Greg, you are moving that we pay $27,710.88 to vendor SHI to replace 24 desktop computers. It was moved by Greg, seconded by Kira. And the third purchase offer. Oh, yeah, you have to vote. Okay, all in favor? Okay, any nays? Yes, yes. Yeah, I got that part. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, we will make that purchase. That purchase is approved. And the third one.
The third is our cell phone RFP, and this is for up to 60 cell phones with an unlimited data plan.
Okay,
We posted this and had 2 responses from T-Mobile and Verizon, and T-Mobile by far had the better price.
okay. I took this to my husband, I said. Okay, so we have a per month price per phone, but we don't have a total price on that? Is that, there is a total price? Oh,
It-
17,000, I'm sorry, Mark. Okay, do we have a motion? Thank you. Okay, moved by Jim. Second by Tom, and Liz has a question.
Yes, please. Is this the cell phone purchase request for staff? Are the cell phones and the plans together, or is this for the plans primarily?
The cost of the phone, there's no cost of the phone if we maintain the line for 24 months. If we terminate the line early, the cost of the phone will be prorated.
And this is for staff usage or for student usage?
Staff.
Staff usage. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. Question, anybody else have questions? Greg?
Why is the district purchasing phones for staff, I guess, is my question, because this just seems strange to me.
So this would be for Tim's guys, people who need to be accessible at absolutely 24 hours a day, and asking those people to provide their personal number is above and beyond. Some people, I will tell you that some people do choose to use their own phone, and we give them a stipend for that. And I will tell you that the stipend does exceed what this number is, so that will be an interesting conversation.
Kevin?
What do our desktops for students, where do those tend to be located and used?
Our desktops for students.
Isn't that what the
Yeah, the second
student
one.
desktop ones?
Yeah. Mark, where are there, I said the Chromebooks? Or,
The desktops for students are typically in lab setups. We don't have as many as we used to due to the use of the Chromebooks now, but there's still a number of tasks that the Chromebooks can't perform, and so we have a limited number of labs throughout the district that these go towards.
do you have a follow-up question, Kevin?
No.
Okay. More questions? Okay, so we'll take a vote. We'll take a vote on that last item, the cell phones. How many in favor? Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, that purchase is approved. Okay, now we have a conversation, question about foreign exchange students and whether the board is interested in allowing us, the district. Oh, goal review and adoption. I think to skip that. Okay, all right, so the goal review and adoption. So in your purple folders was a list of the goals that we had developed at our workshop. I hope, I'll open conversation now on any of those goals, if there's any more discussion on those goals. And if not, we can move on to vote. Usually we have 3 goals per year. So I guess we'll take a vote on each one of them. That, I don't,
Or
we could do it with stickies.
I move for the adoption of these 4 goals, and it's 4. I move the adoption of number 5, supporting the administration's academic goals, including the bullet that's below it. I move for adopting the support diversity, equity, inclusion, and access goal, and I would suggest the bullets under that. I would suggest some bullets under that if people want them. And I would, the third I would recommend would be district reconfiguration with those bullets underneath it. And the fourth would be district safety with those bullets underneath it.
Okay. Okay, so Kevin is suggestion, number 5 for number 1, number 6 for number 2, number 4 for number 3, and number 1 for number 4.
And the order of those is irrelevant to me. I just want all four
We
of
would
them.
be eliminating 2 and 3. Yes.
I have a completely different proposal from my friend. I think, and this will take some mathematical genius, I think each one of us on a piece of paper should rank the 6 goals. Somebody take a piece, a summary piece of paper and average out, the rankings. And
You-
that
what
way
you
we
wanna
will
do that?
determine what are the top 3 goals.
That's like ranked choice voting.
It is ranked choice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tom?
but it also reflects exactly what the individual members have in mind and comes up with a final consensus.
Yes, Tom?
I think that runs into the issue about whether we should consider more than 3 goals. So I'm not opposed to doing the ranking. Right, and he said 3. So that's why, I'm not opposed to the voting. I don't think that's a bad idea, but I think we have to decide how many goals we're going to be shooting for.
Okay, why don't we decide that, 3 or 4? Let's do that first, and then you know what? I could put the goals, 1, 2, 3.
Did my
4, 5
motion
up
get
there, and
seconded?
Everybody could put a mark next to them.
Yeah,
How's that?
so
Will we be in violation of any state standards if we have 6 goals?
Okay. So
This,
we have a motion on the floor
with a second.
with a second, so Tom did. Right. Well, in the interest of fairness, Kevin, would you be willing to, you don't want to? Okay, all right, so if there's a motion on the floor, is there any more discussion about Kevin's motion? Dick?
No, I just like Kevin to go through it one more time, highlight.
I was saying that I would recommend that we adopt 4 goals in no particular order. The district safety goal with the bullets that are written there. A district reconfiguration goal, number 4, with the bullets written there. The support administration academic goals with the bullet there. And support diversity, equity, inclusion. And I'd be happy to offer some bullets, but I don't necessarily think they're necessary.
Okay, anybody Dick asked for clarification. Anybody else have any need for clarification? Or then we will vote on the, oh, Jim.
But if we vote yes or no on this, what happens to the idea of having 6 goals or 5 goals or 3 goals?
Well, if you
We haven't even talked that out yet.
Somebody could offer an amendment.
Right, you can amend it whenever you want, or you could squash his and go back to square one, where then you
Why don't we just
decide
have
if you want.
a
one-
quick conversation on number of goals?
One to 6.
Mhm.
These are our preferences for next year's goal.
That's not an amendment.
That's not-
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's what I'm trying.
okay, so it appears we don't have a lot of agreement on this particular motion that's sitting on the floor. So let's vote on this, or unless Kevin would like to rescind it till we have a conversation about how we're gonna vote. He doesn't want to rescind, so we need to have a vote. How,
Are we,
oh, yes, we can. Do you have an amendment you'd like to offer?
I'd like to include, number 3, enhanced community communications.
So you want 5,
You want, right, you want 5 goals then?
That would be the fifth
correct.
one,
I'm
number
just,
3.
I'm clarifying.
Point of order.
To
I
use
have to
crow.
accept his amendment. His amendment is my amendment. I have to accept.
No one seconded your amendment? So no one seconded your
Well,
amendment?
okay, no one.
So aren't you glad you have a
Someone gonna
con-
second my amendment?
I think we jumped way too quickly to a vote.
I think we did, well, a vote, I think maybe the motion that's on the floor is a little bit premature.
Yeah.
So, I think if we vote on it, then we can move on to a discussion. if it's needed, for another way of choosing our goals.
Have a discussion after it's been, motion and seconded.
So, right, so you have an amendment, sorry, just trying to keep
Well,
you
we can
guys
just
on your
vote down.
rules of order here.
We didn't vote yet.
Alan has made a motion to amend.
To add another goal,
Yes.
to add community but is there a second for that?
No.
You don't have a second for it, Alan. And you didn't have a second for your amendment
I'll be
either.
feisty.
Now-
Feisty. I
Well,
will
no,
second
Liz,
Alan's amendment.
Liz now
Second
has
Alan's
something to
amendment.
say. Wait a minute, Liz has something to say.
I don't have an amendment. I just want to say that all of these things are important. And if one of these things does not make it into the goals, it does not mean that there's no focus in that area also. Would there be an agreement on that?
Yes,
A consensus?
absolutely.
So I just want to put that out there, that the work will continue. And, you know, if something like social, emotional, and academic well-being of each student, if that doesn't make it onto the board's goals, it doesn't mean that we are not paying attention to that. It doesn't mean that we're not working toward the best possible situation for each of those outcomes. So I think it's just really important for our community members who are listening right now to understand that whatever we do decide with the goals, that these things are all important. And if I had my druthers, I'd say 6, but I also know that we have to be realistic. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. I just
Okay.
wanted to throw it out there.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Liz. And that's absolutely true, is that, the reason all 6 of these goals, were worked on at the workshop is because they're all important areas and they are all included in the strategic plan. But it's the board's intention when they, name what their 3 to 4 goals are going to be for the year, to communicate to the public what is important to the board. So Jim, you seconded Alan's? Okay, so Alan, you have a second for your amendment.
But I also have a comment on what was said. I do agree that if we voted on, thank you. I do agree that if we voted on 4, we won't lose the other 2. Let's put it that way. But it loses the visibility that they would have as a board goal, a measurable, visible item. And I don't think any one of these should lose that kind of visibility. We have to, we have a meeting at the end of the year to go over what our goals were. So we have an objective to deal with. And I would believe that we should have, if we're going to at least entertain these, we should have all 6 of these as the goal.
Okay,
Your motion was,
right, to add number 3 as a 5th goal.
And when do I make an amendment to this amendment to add 6, number 6?
Right now,
Well, you seconded his amendment, so.
Yes, I did.
We're going to call a vote on the amendment. Can I see a vote on the amendment? How many are in favor of adding a number 3 as a 5th goal? 2. How many are not in favor of adding? 2 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, the amendment fails. Okay, now Krista?
Can I just make one comment about doing our goals? While I understand that all 6 are good goals and ones that we would like to do in fullness, and if we want them to be public, like you just mentioned, Alan, we have to be able to do them well. And if we're going to publicly go out there and talk about them and promote them and push them and put the work in, let's do 2 or 3 well and fully done. We're already having a problem with people committing to subcommittees, meetings, more time. And if we're trying to do 6, we're not going to do them well. I can guarantee you that.
well, that goes contrary to what
Yes.
I believe Liz was saying, is that we're still going to entertain them. If we entertain them.
It's not contrary. It's not.
Can I finish, please? Thank you. If in turn we entertain doing a goal or anything, any item, we're gonna do it well. So I see either we're not gonna do the items, or in turn, we should leave the items as a goal.
Okay, so we still have a motion, the original motion on the floor. One, two, 4 goals. Kevin, do you have something to say?
Well, I certainly agree with Krista. The reason I went with 4 rather than 2 or 3 is a couple of these are the first step down the road, and they are fairly mechanical. We're asking for an audit, or we're asking for an RFP. That's a step toward something that may be a further goal next year. So I don't see them as being really exhaustive of the school board's time and energy this year. That's why I went with 4, because a couple of them get things rolling, but they aren't really time consumptive necessarily this year.
And I would also add that, for the most part, except for number 1, these goals are included in the strategic plan. So as Liz said, they will not be falling by the wayside. And also, I think that the individual board committees will be working on, these goals individually. So it's not that we won't be paying attention to these goals, so. But the board as a whole usually identifies 3 goals to highlight that they will concentrate and follow through. So we have, I think the only motion we have on the floor is still Kevin's. Am I on? Okay. So do we have any more discussion around Kevin's motion? And if not, Jim,
I'd like to make a motion that we add goal number 2 as the 5th goal.
for a one,
goal.
for a, well, we have,
Yeah, my rationale.
Okay.
Before somebody seconds, my rationale for that is, I was gonna say we're gonna do number 3 anyway. And I just don't like the idea of dropping any of these 5. So my motion is to add number 2
as a 5.
as the 5th, as one of the 5.
Okay. So you are offering an amendment to Kevin's goal.
Right.
Tom?
So, Dr.
Oh, do we have a second for Jim's?
Second,
Okay, that was Doug? Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Ullman had brought up about, prioritizing these goals. We could probably add another 6 that would be very worthy of our time to work on. There's a lot of things we want to accomplish. Krista mentioned before about limiting it to a realistic number. And I think traditionally it's been 3, from what I'm being told. I was persuaded to go with the 4, and I was going to propose we do the 4 that Kevin proposed, based on our discussion of the 6 goals from our workshop the other day. I thought strong arguments were made for those 4 goals that persuaded me that we could take on 4 goals. But so I'm not opposed to 2 and 3. They're great goals in and of themselves, but I think we're going to limit ourselves to, if we think we're going to have a problem meeting the time and effort that all these goals are going to require, I'd like the idea of limiting it to 4, which is in and of itself a stretch based on
Okay.
history.
Okay, so let's have a vote on Jim's amendment for adding number 2 as a 5.
You don't have a second yet.
Oh, yes, we do. Yeah. Yeah, Doug seconded. Yep,
I was thinking.
yep. So could I call a vote on the amendment? All in favor?
Which is Jim's adding a 5th goal.
Okay, yes.
Right.
Wait a minute. Wait till Krista comes back.
The 5th one, which is different than the 5th one that Alan tried to put on.
Right, okay, so we are voting on Jim's amendment to add number 2, social, emotional, and academic well-being of each student, as a 5th goal. Can I see a show of hands? How many people are in favor? 1, 2, 3 people are in favor. How many people are not interested in seeing adding? 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, the amendment fails. Okay, we're back to the original,
I just wanted to know, I'm devastated.
Okay, what makes
Is there
us
any
mad?
mental health
I'm sorry to hear that.
service that? Can I announce a universal principle of human behavior?
Yes.
There's only one other, which is no one has ever washed a rental car. That's a universal principle. The second universal principle is the
Relevant.
fewer any organization's goals, and here I mean a school district, the more intense the focus of that organization, in this case, the faculty, the administration, the school board, on those fewer goals. I feel much more at ease with just 3 goals rather than Kevin's 4, but anyway,
Okay, so would you like to offer an amendment that we have 3 goals? You stick with the top 3 that Kevin mentioned and drop the 4th.
yeah, I would propose an amendment to Kevin's proposal, which is that the school board adopt as its goals these 3 goals right here.
Well, those,
What are their
The,
numbers?
okay, the, yes, district safety.
Number 4.
Right.
So it would be support administration academic goals, support diversity, equity, inclusion, and access to all opportunities for students in the district, and district reconfiguration.
Those would be the 3.
The 3 goals.
There's not been a second, but if there is, I'll comment on that.
Okay, so
I'll
is,
second it.
okay, Krista, we have an amendment by Steve, seconded by Krista. Okay, Kevin.
To the extent that this is a communication to our public about our priorities and our goals, what we're going to focus on, I don't think it's a good message to say, we have some progress we want to make on district safety, but it's not high enough to make our annual goals. Not a message I want to wrap myself around.
Oh, okay, Ellen?
I think as, in my mind, the top priority goal we should have to, what Kevin is saying also, community and for ourselves, is district safety. I don't think there's any goal that we can come up with that should be any more important than that. I am totally against eliminating.
Okay. Doug?
Taking into consideration the things that have been going on in the past few years around schools, yes, schools, safety's there. Yes, diversity, equity, inclusion, and access is there. Yes, social, emotional, academic well-being is there. And, academic goals are there. There are some things that I don't see that are there, as far as community communication. I don't see why it's an important thing that we should do, and that we will do that because that's what we do and that's what we should do. And as I understand, the reconfiguration has always been something that's been on the list, so it's not going anywhere. But for this year, it seems to me that the safety, that the DEIA initiatives, that the social emotional learning, which has been very important throughout the district and throughout the country, really, and the academic goals of schools are all important things that we should be focusing on. And should we have other things? Absolutely, absolutely. But as a board, just because we wanted to be there, and that's something that we've been working on, such as reconfiguration, does that need to be something we're going to get done this year? Maybe, if the board so chooses. But for this year, I would say that the things that are standing out more in my mind are those topics that we may not look at as important because of things we haven't done in the past. So again, I would say, I'm not trying to change the motion at all, whichever motion we're on right now, which I'm very confused by that. However, there's some things that I don't think should be out of our head because that's what's big in our country and in our community right now.
So the motion that we're actually having a discussion on was the one that was proposed by Steve and seconded by Krista to drop number 4 and stick to 3.
Let's move the question, let's vote on
Okay,
my
let's vote
amendment.
on that amendment right now. How many are in favor of dropping? Yes, the goals that are staying are those original 3. There were the original 4. So the 1 is support administration academic goals. Number 2, support diversity, equity, inclusion, and access to all opportunities. And 3, district reconfiguration. Those stay. Like the amendment on the floor is to drop number 4 or number 1, the 4th amendment that Kevin proposed, district safety. So how many in favor are in favor of going back to 3, the first 3 goals, and dropping the 4th? One person, not even the second person who seconded the
I
amendment.
got more votes than you did.
You're a more charismatic figure.
This is a really like ego shattering process.
I may have
Okay.
to go home now.
I was?
We're gonna end up with rocks, paper,
Okay.
scissors.
Okay, so I'd like to let's call a vote on the original amendment, and then if that doesn't work, okay, so how many are in favor of the 1, 2, 3, and 4 goals that Kevin proposed as the original motion? How many in favor?
I'm voting grudgingly.
May I ask that you restate those goals, please?
Okay.
Under duress.
Okay,
Under
so
duress, yeah.
Kevin's motion was number 1 goal, support administration academic goals.
I've said several times that I
No-
didn't
no
put them
priority.
out in
I
any
know,
order
but I just,
whatsoever.
I have to put,
So you
okay,
could
so I
start at the
can
top of the page.
stop at the top of the page. First one is district safety. The next one is district reconfiguration. The next one is support administration academic goals. And the next one is support diversity, equity, inclusion, and access to all opportunities for students in the district. Those are the 4 goals. So we would be voting on 4 goals as opposed to 3. Can I see a show of hands in favor of those 4 goals? Okay, okay, so I think we have 1, 2, 3, I can't count. Okay, so we have 13 people.
No, we get 12. 12,
9.
Catherine's not here.
Well, there's just 2 people the 2 nays are Doug and Krista. 2 nays are Doug and Krista, or are you abstaining? You're a no, Doug?
No.
They're a no, okay. The motion carries.
Okay.
Jim?
Can I ask a question? Why did you guys vote no? Because you want a 5th?
Yes, that's definitely it. I'd like 12, actually. No. I think it should be 3 at a tops, and I think that number 2, which is, I think, number 2. Yes, that number 2 should be on there.
I also voted no because, well, 4 is fine with me, but number 2, the social emotional learning should be over, again, not ranking, but over configuration.
Okay, Kimberly, did you want to say something?
So can I make a suggestion if that is of concern that, which is not an amendment, this is just a suggestion and you can all just tell me to go away, is on what is listed as number 5, just say support administration and strategic plan, academic and social emotional goals for students. That way, because
Kevin will amend.
No?
I'll make a motion, change the wording of goal on support administration and academic goals to say, provide appropriate support for the administration for business goals, including math, ELA test scores, and social and emotional learning measurements. Is that okay?
it's that I'm just trying to help.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Liz seconds. Motion by Kevin, second by, okay, so that would bring social emotional learning in, but we still have 4 goals.
So that's just making it 5 goals and covering it up by number 4. So, okay,
You're still a no.
I'm still a no.
Okay. Liz?
I believe that some of this work is happening on a daily basis. at the board level, we are not sitting in this room and saying what's happening every day in the classrooms. But as a parent, I can tell you that what I see these teachers doing in the classroom to help these kids grow and to support their social, emotional, and academic well-being is excellent. Given the entire situation with the pandemic, this is a continuation of what's happening. So this will never be something that is out of the lens in which we see through right now, in my opinion. So I don't see it being problematic that we don't need to like identify it specifically, because I see that it's happening. And, you know, with regards to supporting the administration's academic goals, we always do that, or we should, right?
Krista,
And I will also suggest that having children in the district and knowing multiple students in the district and parents, that is not necessarily the case. And it needs, and I'm not saying that the staff does not do a good job and that they do not try their hardest, but there are gaps. And there are children that are falling through them, and that needs to be fixed.
But don't you think this work is a continuation? Always? No? And are we the ones that are demanding these changes being made?
I think we're getting off topic here a little bit. So
It's fine. I mean, two of us voted no. The majority went ahead, so it is what it is.
okay, there's an
It's
amendment.
been voiced that we voted no, so that's the end of
Okay.
it.
Okay.
I do think it's important that we have these discussions, though, so that we can understand where each other is coming from. You know, I think that's the only way we learn.
I think can I make a comment? I think the
Yes,
most
Jim.
important next step is communication of the goals. It's been on, I'm lazy. I think one of the most important steps in this, once we've established our goals, is that the communication process and the fact that we need to say in the preface, there are a lot of things we do on an ongoing basis. We continue to do those. Some we took out, but they need to be mentioned up above somehow. So the communication, when we put this out, has got to reflect that.
Doug?
I'd like to call the question.
Okay. So we're voting on the amendment that was offered. Who offered the amendment now? Kevin offered the amendment to add social emotional learning to support administration academic goals. So that is added, the board's focus is on both academic goals and social emotional learning. And I believe that somebody suggested that in the workshop too. So how many would like to see that added? May I see a show of hands, please? Yeah, for the yeses. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kevin, is your hand up? Okay, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that amendment passes. So we have 4 goals that we are going with. And we incorporated the social emotional learning into the administration academic goals. So we have our board goals now.
This is harder than making it.
I know, it was. It was. Yeah, that's right. It's because Kimberly wasn't facilitating, she reminded me. Okay, so now foreign exchange students.
So I asked for this to be on the agenda because we had basically put a halt on having foreign exchange students during the pandemic. It was not because they come from different countries. There's all sorts of hoops that student has to jump through, but I was not in a place to withdraw that particular strategy because the board had been really clear with me that that was not an okay practice during the pandemic. So this is on the agenda now for your consideration.
Dick?
I move we allow foreign exchange students to continue to be, apply applications that come to the Conval School District. We've done it in the past. It has been extremely successful here. And these students come speaking English fairly well. Matter of fact, they speak very well. And I think it's a great opportunity for our students to have an interaction with someone from a different country. It's sort of like a Yankee going to the South. And the Southerners see the Yankee and they say, you know what? You guys are all right.
I don't know, she's holding you're getting
second the
into
motion.
difficult territory. Does Dick's motion to accept foreign students into the Conval School District, does it have a second?
I second it. Lots.
Kevin seconded, okay. Moved by Dick, seconded by Kevin. Any discussion? Alan?
It's not that I'm against it, because I'm not, but I don't know everything that goes into this program. Is that how many full-time exchange students will we currently have at Conval this year? Any?
So that, I believe that we would have that we have two waiting in the wings to come
Okay, that would be coming in.
Mhm.
Now, how many from Conval would be going?
in. So the programs that individual families work with, work through a J1 visa program. So the student who is coming is usually coming for a whole year, so it's not necessarily like an exchange. So we may have students that have gone to other countries, but they would also be working with independent
So the
companies.
ones that are coming here would be full year students?
Usually it's a full year or a full
Which is
semester.
different than the German program that we
Yes.
have here, which is only 2 weeks.
Right. So the program you're referring to is more of that's a school-based program where we actually work through our German program, and we have students go to actually Austria in this case, or in Austria in the past, and then we work directly with a school, or Cindy Hodgson works directly with a school, and those students come here, and then for 2 weeks to a month, and then our students at the end of the year go to there for 2 weeks to a month.
My last question is that, which would always be, what is the cost of this? When we have a student coming over here, who absorbs the cost,
So that depends on the program. So I would, and that can be negotiated. So I would take the board's direction in non-public as far as how you would want me to negotiate with individual companies.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Steve?
I like Alan, I'm totally fit with this kind of program. On the other hand, I think there's certain requirements for a successful program that really have to be met. The first one has to do with selection and preparation of host families. I think it needs to, I have observed the long ago past, failures in this kind of program when the host families were not sufficiently flexible, or they were located in such a rural area that the student did not have I also think that there should be an academic advisor at the high school set up, especially assigned so that the students can be carefully. And finally, I think that there should be student colleagues. That is, students who have interest perhaps in the country that students have, who can be assigned to host the student special. I'm a little concerned that all of a sudden you are being asked, or the district is being asked to accommodate foreign students without the host family, without the academic advisor, without the student colleague.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Is it okay for me to respond?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, these individual families actually work with different companies who specialize in doing that, in selecting the host family, selection of the student. The student coming from the other country usually pays a fee to the company to make those arrangements. And I will tell you that usually the host parent interfaces with the school counseling office to make sure that that student has an appropriate schedule. So I appreciate all that you're talking about, and all of that is done through these companies and these programs. Yeah, these families, right? So these families are already selected. At times, companies will call me, companies or programs will call me to find out if we're accepting students, and that's what actually prompted. Actually, we had a parent who is involved in the program and wants to host, and I said I had to say, oh wait, I can't give you an answer until after I talk to the board. But this is a long. We have in the past always had students, exchange students. It was not until the pandemic that we put a stop to that.
Does
Just
that
be-
answer your concern, Steve?
Yeah, I have to observe the disasters during the exchange. I just want to observe them. Become secure about
Well, we don't select them, just for clarification. And I feel, so this person who has requested this actually used to be a staff member, so he wouldn't usually say, go out on a limb, but this person is, I have no doubts about this person's ability to host and be an appropriate member of the program.
Doug?
Thank you for clarifying that we are not choosing the host families or have anything to do with that, because I feel like that, because I don't think we should be a part of that, let them do that type thing. Also, I think that this program, getting this programs going again, only helps our student population, gives them a different look at different people that we are sorely needed around here. And maybe it's be one or two, but that's one or two more than we had before.
Oh, Kevin. Kevin, did you have something to say?
If I'm not mistaken, one of the programs is AFS.
I'm sorry, I have it written down in my
Okay,
office.
but I think it is, and I was an AFS student as part of an AFS exchange, and I've been associated with at least a dozen of these, and they do a stellar job, just an outstanding job. Yeah.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Then we have a motion on the floor to welcome these students into the district. Can we have a vote, please? How many are in favor?
Is this like for it, now we can open the doors, or is it just these students that we're voting on?
I think it's in the general. Okay, all in favor? Anybody against? Nays? Abstentions? Okay, unanimous. Okay, and that brings us to our second period of public comment. Mr. Grassi? I don't see any members of the public here. I'll just remind the public that should you be present, you always have the opportunity to address the school board with any comments or concerns that you may have. Okay, and we will move on to approval of the manifests.
All right, I certify that manifests totaling $788,400.11 have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against Kentucky Valley School District for goods and or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move we approve the manifest as presented.
I both negotiate. All in favor? Nays? Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. You can pay the bills. And that brings us to the end of the board meeting, and I will entertain a motion to go into non-public. Yep.
Okay. I make a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, for negotiations and staff
Personnel.
Hmm?
Personnel.
personnel And, also to have a 5-minute break between this and the next.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dick. All in favor? And we gotta go do the roll call.
Krista?
Liz?
Alan?
Janine,
Doug?
thank you. Okay, 5-minute recess.